What's up, guys? Alright, so in another video, I was talking about how I created my own spiritual practice, right? And I stuck to my roots where I started off as Christian, so I kept within the whole you know, Jewish mysticism, Christian mysticism, Abrahamic type area of that type of stuff, right? And of course, depending on how you practice it, there is magic, there is sorcery and occultism, esotericism, mysticism involved in all of these things. And I wanted to go a little bit deeper into this and explain my vision, my idea around the Abrahamic gods, because there's not just one god, there's gods, and explain the differences and why I follow one and not the other, and things like that, right? So so pretty much just to get a little preamble, just to understand what I do. The basis of my entire spirituality is Kabbalah. So Kabbalah is sort of like my religion. I'm not Jewish, so I don't necessarily follow any of the um, Lorenic or Loranic. I can't say the word laws. So I eat pork and stuff like that, that type of stuff, right? But Kabbalah, so the Tree of Life, the four worlds. So the Tree of Life is four of them stacked on top of each other, and then you have Ein Sof Or, Ein Sof, and Ein. And then we have all of these other things like the five, the like the I forgot what the five elements. No, not five elements. Well, there are elements and planets and blah blah, astrology, all of these other things, reincarnation. Um, the soul is like divided into five sections, or I forgot how to word it correctly. I think I forgot if they characterize it as different souls, like the animal soul and the intellectual soul, as in different souls within the same body, or if it's different components of the same soul. But regardless, I'll talk more about that later on. Like I'll have to like read up so that I can map it out correctly, so that I'm not fudging any of the details. But yeah, like if you know about Kabbalah, you would probably know about the Ruach and strengthening it through um, mitzvahs and prayer and stuff like that, right? So, but then there's other parts. With the highest part being the part of the soul that is divine and could like sort of merge with God, like go into God. But then there's all of these other types of components of Kabbalah. But my biggest flaw is the fact that I have studied so much and read so many books and read and listened to so many things, that I know about so many subjects, that it's really hard to keep it all like organized in my brain. Like my brain's not a computer. I'm not going to be able to pull up every single thing. So yeah, but moving on. From this, there's a lot of magic and mysticism involved with Kabbalah, simply with meditations and so on and so on, like things involving the Tree of Life, the spirit, like these little rituals, like mitzvahs and so on and so on. And then I also go into the Solomonic traditions. So I do the Solomonic tradition, and I work with the 72 angels of the Ars Paulina, I believe, and the 72 demons of the Ars Goetia. And I also work, not extensively, but I do work with the 44 Pentacles. Um, and when I say 72, 72, 44, and then there's the 74 saints that I sort of developed a relationship with because of Spiritismo, which is, there's elements of Afro, um, like African diaspora religions in there, but it's also really mixed with Christianity and the mysticism and the folk magic aspect of it. Um, but I don't necessarily work with every single one. It's just this is what I have access to. This is what's a part of my tradition, and I work with the ones that I specifically want to or need to for specific situations and reasons. So I have access to the 72 angels, the seven archangels, the 72 demons, the 74 saints, the what's it called, the 44 pentacles, the five elements, the seven planets. Technically, there's more planets, but originally, there were seven planets. How you call on the Tree of Life? Bina being Saturn, the last, the okay. So yeah, Bina being Saturn, and then Chogma would be the constellations. It would be the stars, and then Keter would be beyond. So this would be beyond the stars. This would be something else. And then when you get all the way to the top, the last world, and then you go into Ein Sof Or and Ein Sof, this is something else even like more, because Ein Sof Or Ein Sof Or are not necessarily manifested. So this is not something within the natural world. This is something beyond anything we can comprehend. We can comprehend a little bit of it just based off of an explanation of what these things are, but whatever. Let's not get lost in that. Um, and then my patron saint is Santa Muerte. Now, Santa Muerte has been condemned by the Catholic Church, but I'm not Catholic, so that doesn't matter to me. Santa Muerte has been one of the most gracious saints in my life, and so on. So, yeah. Now, I do get a lot of influences from Tantra. As you can see, I have Kali, and over here, that's Krishna. But from this tantric perspective, what I mostly get is philosophy. It's not necessarily like I don't do magic. I don't ask them for things in the sense of, I want a new car and stuff like that. It's more of a a sense of like learning about non-dualism, like experiences where like Kali multiple times have set me through some experiences where she pretty much cut off my head, and that is representative for cutting off my ego, allowing me to see the shadow aspect of myself and the potential for wickedness, the potential for naivety and ignorance, and the potential for doing wrong by my own standards, right? So, and then this allows me to analyze myself a little bit deeper and sort of get a little deeper into refining myself so that I can be more of my true self. And now there's more philosophical stuff that goes into that, because technically there is no true self. When you really, really get to the core of the self, what there is emptiness. It's like this persona that I'm presenting to you is a mask. Now, for me, because of the things that I've done, this mask is a chosen mask. I have created this persona with intentionality, but belief that is the void. And when you realize that and you get really connected with that void beneath the everything, this gets you very close to God, or the supreme divinity, because the supreme divinity is void. It is emptiness and potential, and it's unmanifested. So the true self, the I that has everything and does everything, is void. So there's this connection with God through that. Now, I want to get a little more into the actual theology. Like, what is the theology? How do I make this all make sense theologically? What happens is this. You see, Jews today call God Hashem, and Hashem is just means the name. So when they say Hashem, they're referencing Yod He Vav He, and Yod He Vav He is the supreme name which is associated with Ein Sof. So Yod He Vav He is pretty much the infinite, or the infinite potential, which is united with the void, with the emptiness. So this emptiness and this void within it, from which everything emerged from, is Yod He Vav He. But at the time, there were scholars that wanted to try to pronounce this name so that they can have the name of God. And some of them came up with the name Yahweh, and others pronounced it Jehovah. Now, actually, give me 1 second, guys. Yeah, so as I was saying, some of them pronounced it Yahweh, and some of them pronounced it Jehovah. Now, this is the thing. Yod He Vav He is not a name. It's not like Billy and Bob, right? It's four sounds. It's four letters of the Hebrew alphabet, and there's a reason for that because it's the supreme. This is the supreme sound that represents Yod He, that represents Ein Sof, which is unmanifested. So the unmanifested can't be named. Like in Taoism, the Tao that can be named is not the true Tao, right? So what happens is when they gave it a name, when they turned that sound into a name, they took the unmanifested and made it manifest. So what they did by doing that was create an egregor. And then this egregor ended up taking on characteristics. The supreme has no characteristics. This is in the Torah or the Tanakh. Like if you study biblically, like the Jewish literature, the Christian literature, and the Muslim literature within the Quran, you're going to realize that it talks about the supreme nature of God, where there is no characteristics, traits, or attributes. By giving it a name and giving it attributes, you took the unmanifested and made it manifest. So this is an egregor. Now, personally, I think that Jehovah is pretty decent as a manifestation of the divine, and Allah is pretty decent as a manifestation of the divine. Yahweh, on the other hand, is kind of a douchebag. Now, I've tried to understand and see, like, maybe it's not as bad as, maybe there's something that I'm missing here, and I'm just being a little too harsh. But the reality is this: Yahweh, when his cult started, his egregor sent his people on a maniac genocide spree and pretty much killing off all of the tribes that worship the older gods. And what was happening was that Yahweh was like this storm god of war, and all of his people were just raiding and genociding and killing babies and all types of stuff. And they ended up merging him with El. And by merging him with El, he took on the characteristics of the loving father that sits in the sky and protects you and listens to your prayers. By doing this, more regular men and women and children started to get converted into the Yahweh cult, and this is how Yahweh ended up becoming this supreme God of the world, technically. Not necessarily, but come on, there's 2 billion people that think that he's God, right? So, well, not 2 billion, because amongst Christians there are people that don't use that name and specifically use Jehovah. But regardless, point is, this was all something done by Yahweh, and part of this was genociding these people that worship the older gods. The word Elohim in Hebrew actually means the gods. It means the gods, not a god. Now Christians will say, well, it says the gods, but this is to magnify God's power. Well, you can find another way to magnify God's power without naming him, like giving him like calling him something plural, right? Like if I was the president, you wouldn't start calling me presidents to make sure that everybody knows I'm the best president, right? The reality is that Elohim means gods, and this is a remnant of the old Israelite religion, because the Elohim had multiple gods. El was the father of the gods, and his wife was Asherah. And then we had other gods like Inanna and Ma'at and Baal. And Baal actually has a big thing to do with Yahweh, because they tried to merge Yahweh with Baal, but the Yahweh cult refused it for various reasons. But then in the Bible, this is actually documented in the Bible, they declared Baal the worst enemy of God, and they pretty much turned Baal into a Satan. And because of this, there was a reason for this. What happened was El had determined that Baal should be the heir to his throne. And Yahweh ended up pretty much stealing that. Technically, Baal should be the supreme king of the Christian religion today. Um, but it didn't go that way because, whatever, right? Now, there are some theories here and there that perhaps Allah is Baal, but I don't want to go down that route because I'm not trying to offend the Muslims, and especially if I'm not sure. Like, I'm just not sure about that, and there isn't that much evidence to link them together. Now, there is some literature here and there, like, that's outside of the Quran that mention the name Allah, and I would need to do a deep dive again to really figure out who were they talking about. Is this a reference to something else, or were they referencing the same Allah we know in the Quran? But we also have to understand that even Islam started in paganism. Before, I don't remember the names of the other deities in pagan Islam before Islam became Islam, but there was Allah as a supreme, and there were also like the daughters of Allah and other deities. So there was I wish I could remember. I literally heard the name of one of the daughters of Allah today, but it isn't on the tip of my tongue. So I'm not gonna waste too much time trying to remember. But point is that there were these multiple gods, and the way that it worked in Arabia at the time, Allah was the supreme, but each region had its tribe, and each tribe had its own pantheon. And most likely, this is because the majority of the population of the Arabian Peninsula, I'm pretty sure. So pretty much what today would be like Saudi Arabia and Yemen and those types of areas, right? So those types of areas literally are right across the river from Africa. So most likely they were influenced by African culture and so on and so on. So I'm not 100% sure how true that is either. So take me with a grain of salt. I know more about Judaism and Christianity than Islam, but this seems like what was happening because a lot of what we see in the old religions of Africa, we saw in the old religion of Islam before Islam was Islam. So mind you, this is not Islam yet. So eventually they destroyed all of these pantheons and deities and everything. They removed everything that was in the Kaaba, and it became monotheistic. And this monotheistic wave happened with Judaism as well, and other things of the time. Most likely, this might have been some sort of influence from Zoroastrianism, pretty much the religion of Persia at the time, because they were pretty much one of the first religions. I don't want to say the first or only, but they were one of the first ones during that particular time that had an all good God and an all bad devil. I believe Aramashtu, Mashta, whatever, not important. But yes, okay. So you got to remember all of these things, these cultures. They were trading with each other. They were influencing each other. There's a lot of influence of Zoroastrianism in all of these other religions, and I think that this influence might have caused them to go into this monotheistic phase of their religion. Now, personally, I am not monotheistic. I am not monotheistic in its essence, because when true monotheism is stating that there is one God and that it is separate from everything else, that is true monotheism. Technically, I'm a monotheistic because I believe there's only one God, but I am not a true monotheist because I am actually a pantheist. I believe that every God, angel, devil, demon, human, animal, every single thing with consciousness, everything with agency, and everything inanimate everything, pretty much the entire universe and everything in it, whether it's physical or spiritual, it all emerged from this one place. So God is one. All of us are just a part of God. We're just a piece of God experiencing itself and experiencing it itself. Yeah. So technically, I'm a monotheist. A monotheist because I believe there's only one God, but I am a pantheist because I believe that everything is God. A true monotheist would not believe that everything is God, even though this is actually in the Bible. God said, "There is nothing outside of me." And if there's nothing outside of me, meaning everything is inside of Him, we are parts of Him, right? So, yeah. So, okay. So now, technically, I am also a polytheist, but again, not a true polytheist, because true polytheism would state that there are many gods and they are separate from each other and separate from you. Now, I believe there are many gods, but I don't believe they're separate. I believe they, just like us, are just different masks of the divine. They're just different manifestations of the divine. And this, I believe, is true across all religions. So even all of the Hindu gods are manifestations and incarnations or avatars of this emptiness, this void, which possessed infinite potential. So Kali, Krishna, to Inanna, to Ishtar, to Azeroth, to Hecate, all of them, everything from the Romans, the Greeks, the Egyptians, every single spiritual entity emerged from that void, right? So technically they are all one, but we live in a illusion of separation, and that illusion is very important because it's what allows us to create this narrative, this narrative of this is who I am and this is what I look like and these are the things I believe and this is the way that I act, is what makes me distinct from you. And also within the gods, that's what makes Hecate distinct from Prometheus, or De Morgan distinct from Santa Muerte, right? These are different entities. Technically, they all stem from the same source, and some are closer to the source and some are further away from the source, but all of them possess the divine spark, regardless how far away they are from the source. Okay, so now, um, so yeah, so I do work with the Elohim, and I do believe that El is the supreme God. So when I think of the manifested God, not the unmanifested, which is Yod He Vav He, but the manifested God, I go to El. Now the thing is that I don't do this often, right? So El is more of a it's more of a concept to me. Technically, I do see El as the supreme father of the gods, and when I do work with angels, the word El is in their names, most of them at least. So, like, this is a part of my psychological link to this tradition. So El is important. Now, I do not look at El from a position where he's still merged with Yahweh. I have separated them in my own way, and El is on his own. And I accept Baal as a lesser deity, but I like the transition from Baal becoming that didn't happen. But you could read the Baal cycle and learn about Baal and learn about all these things, and this would be a decent way for you to get an understanding of these deities. And the unfortunate fact is that if you want to know more about the pantheon of the Elohim and the Canaanite pantheon, there are some really good books that will teach you this stuff, but they're usually by very, very high up scholars, and those types of books are going to cost you pretty penny, like about 100, maybe even more, like $100 or more for these types of books. So if you really want to know about that, then it's available. Um, um, but it's relatively expensive. But when you think about it, I've seen some black magic books costing upwards to $300. So if you're that type of person, I'm assuming $100 for scholarly works is not a bad deal. Um, okay, so what else? Let me take a few minutes, so that I don't waste time. Let me see what else I'm gonna have to let you guys know. Okay, so here's another thing. I do consider Yahweh as wicked, um, but I am not sure if the understanding of Yaldabaoth, I'm not sure if these two are truly linked. Now, first of all, something you should know about the Gnostics is that, yes, there is a group of Gnostics that believe the physical world is wicked and evil and inherently flawed, um, and that the God of the Bible is Yaldabaoth and evil. But this is not all Gnostics. There were different groups of Gnostics that believe different things. Now, most of them do believe that, Yahweh was evil, but they don't name him Yahweh. They name him Yaldabaoth. So there's some funkiness here. It gets a little muddy. So we don't actually know if these are just two separate entities that are wicked or if they're the same entity. So I don't want to force anything to make sense for me. But yeah, now this is the thing. Technically, I do believe that the physical world is inherently flawed, but I am not the type of Gnostic that believes that this means we should be escaping it. Um, the inherent flaw within reality is that everything has its counterpart because of not free will but possibility. So for instance, if there is an old lady in front of me, the fact that I am able to say, hey, I'm not going to punch her in the head, the fact that I can choose not to punch her in the head means that I am capable of punching her in the head. So, unfortunately, the fact that I know enough to not punch old ladies in the back of the head means that somebody out there probably has. So, yeah, and this really comes down to the thought of suffering in the world. A lot of people would say, if your God is so good and holy and blah 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 blah, then why is there suffering? And it's not really why is there suffering. It's more of, it's not that he creates suffering or permits suffering. It's more that it's a byproduct. So when if God creates peace, then the opposite of peace must also exist, right? Or if the opposite of peace doesn't exist, then how would you ever know if you have peace, right? If you got rid of both, then we don't really know what there would be, right? We don't know what that is. Because if there's no conflict and no peace, then what is this middle? Is not even a middle ground, because the two ends of the spectrum aren't even there. So we don't actually know what this would look like. It's so it's not that it's necessary. It's not necessarily that he wants it to exist or created it or whatever. It's that it's unfortunately necessary, but not necessary in the way some people think. It's not like suffering is necessary for growth and blah blah. No, it's more like saying peace exists, therefore conflict exists. To get rid of conflict, you would have to get rid of peace. If you got rid of both, then they both wouldn't exist. But what does that entail? For instance, so another a way for me to describe this, I am capable of not punching old ladies in the back of the head, which means that it is possible to punch old ladies in the back of the head. And if there's many people that haven't, there probably is people that have. Now, if we don't want punching people in the back of the punching old ladies in the back of the head to be possible, we can solve that by just not giving humans arms, right? So when it comes to peace and conflict, in order to remove these, we would have to remove the things that make it possible. But when you go down that route, all right, well, let's say we're saying suffering. Well, all suffering? Okay, how do we remove that? All right, what if you fall and hurt yourself? So what if we got rid of all suffering that's intentional, but now there's still suffering? Let's say you fall down the stairs and break an ankle. This is painful. This is suffering. All right, well, how about you don't have ankles? Well, you could still hurt something else. All right, well, how about you don't have the sensation of pain? Or how about you don't have a body at all? What if we're all spirits? Now you can't get hurt. And then you start falling down this path. Eventually, we come to the ultimate solution, which is the only true way to remove all suffering and all wickedness and all bad things is to not exist. So, what it really comes down to is God saying, hey, I could stop all these bad things, but all of these bad things are super intertwined with the good things. So, like the Bible says, that He permits the weeds to grow for the sake of the harvest. Because pulling out the weeds would harm the wheat, right? When you pull out the weeds, those roots are entangled with the roots of the wheat. So pulling the weeds out harm the wheat, right? So he says, I leave those weeds in because if I pulled them out, it would hurt the wheat, which means that I allow the wicked stuff, because if I was to remove it, I would have to remove a lot of the good stuff. And the ultimate solution is, if I want to get rid of all bad things, I would just have to annihilate the universe and not allow anything to exist at all. And I think that God might be in a sense where it's not like He doesn't want to do this, it's the fact that there are still good people on earth that don't want that to happen. And when God sees good people doing good things, He says, hey, look, there's some pretty bad stuff here, but look at this guy. He did that thing, and that was really cool. And He wants us to continue living, and His reasons are pretty good. He has a wife and kids, and He loves them very much, and He wants to see them again. He wants to be able to go to sleep and wake up the next day and still be in His home with His family. And He's not the only one. There's billions of people like this that still love their families and friends and the experiences they have with them, and their cities and towns, and nature, and all of, like, everything. And there's a lot of people trying to do good. There's a lot of people that see suffering and they make it their business to try to, like, reduce it. So for their sake, I will allow the universe to continue. So, and I know this might sound like a cop out, but the reality is that God allows suffering to exist for your sake. Because He could annihilate the suffering and the wickedness, but that would include annihilating you, because you cause suffering and wickedness. And I'm not saying this from a moralizing perspective where you're the bad guy, you're a sinner. It's more like, come on, be honest. You've done some funky stuff in your past, right? You've done some funky stuff. Everybody has. If we're going to get rid of all suffering and all wickedness, we would have to get rid of ourselves as well. And even if you're perfect, even if we look at some lady that literally spent her entire life at a soup kitchen, and that's her whole life, she just feeds the homeless. Unfortunately, she's like prime wheat. She's like the best wheat in fucking town. But her roots are intertwined with the roots of the weeds. And if we uproot those weeds, we uproot her too. So, He sort of allows the suffering simply for our sake. You can't get rid of one without the other, right? So I think that was really important to talk about, because, reality is flawed, but that's kind of what allows for it to be as unique as it is, you know? In order to make reality perfect, we would all have to be robots. Everything would have to be like measured perfectly and done in a specific way. So like imagine if we were if to create reality as perfect, we would need to work like a hive, like a beehive. And if you watch that movie Bees, I'm not saying the movie is good or anything. There is that part where they say, remember, you're going to take this job and you're going to do this job for the rest of your life. And then the bee says, wait, so you're going to work us to death? We're going to try to, right? So, like, is that really what you want? Are you going to choose perfection, even though this means you will have no hobbies, no friends, no nothing? Your duty is just to make everything run perfectly, and you will have no life of your own. You're just a worker bee, right? So yeah, okay. Um, so yeah, so there's a lot of Gnostic stuff that I believe, but I don't think that we're meant to be escaping the world. I think that we're meant to be bringing the world closer to God. And by this, I do not mean saving them through the power of Jesus. And I'm not mad at Jesus or anything. I'm very fond of Jesus. Jesus is part of my tradition. But I don't believe in Jesus the same way that other people do. My idea is not like I need to save you through Jesus or anything. It's more of um, there's a part where Jesus turns to these people that follow him and says, "Turn away from me, for I never knew you." And they say, "Oh, Jesus, Jesus, like I prayed in your name, I casted out demons, I did this, I did that." And Jesus said, "When I was hungry, you gave me not to eat. When I was thirsty, you gave me not to drink. When I was disimpaired or when I needed refuge, you didn't give me refuge. When I was sick and in prison, you didn't come visit me." And the people were like, "Jesus, I would have done these things for you. I would have done all of these things for you. I would have died for you." And then Jesus says, "When you didn't do it for the least of all men, you didn't do it for me." And then he turns over to the other people and says the opposite. He says, "Come, for I am with you." And they say, "Jesus, like, why us?" And Jesus says, "When I was hungry, you gave me to eat. When I was thirsty, you gave me to drink." And, the same spiel, but in the reverse. You gave me shelter. You visited me in the hospital. You visited me at prison. And they said, "When did I do this for you, Jesus? I've never known you. I've never known you. When did I do this for you?" And this is very important. I never known you. They did not know Jesus. Remember, the people that are trying to save you through Jesus want you to know Jesus. But these people that are being told, "Come with me," did not know Jesus. And Jesus says, when you did it for the least of all man, you did it for me. So these people that did not know Jesus did things for the least of all man, and that meant that they did it for Jesus. And that was greater than the people that were preaching and casting out demons and doing all of the televangelist stuff. So this is one of my big discontents with the modern Christian church today. And I'm not trying to talk ill about all of them. I know there's many different denominations, and they all work very differently, and they all believe very differently, like different things. And I've seen some beautiful things, and I've seen some pretty bad stuff. But ultimately, it doesn't matter. I'm not trying to say like if you're an evangelist, you're evil. No. What it comes down to, if your idea of saving me is doing this and shouting Jesus a whole bunch and pretending like you made my legs grow by praying over me, then you're probably not that good of a Christian. Now, if your idea of saving me is saying, "Hey, how you've been? Do you feel okay, or do you need anything? How's things at home? Are you guys like are you like do you have enough food? Do you have enough drinks? Do you right this type of stuff?" And it's like, actually, I've been having a hard time. I haven't been, you know, meeting my food requirement. Like, I haven't had enough money. Look, I don't have a lot of money, but I can at least give you a little bit. Let's go to the supermarket. I'll get you $50 worth of of groceries. I know it's not a lot. Maybe we can just buy the essential things that is hard for you to buy. Maybe $50 worth of water and soda, and at least you have your drinks covered for the next couple of weeks. Blah blah blah. That is a much closer to God response to trying to save somebody than standing on a soapbox and preaching, you know, like the Bible says you're going to hell and I need to tell you to save you. Like, yeah. So, now there's more other stuff. Because Jesus talks about hell and this and that. And there's like, I know it's there, but it's not really what I think. You got to remember that uh, these things changed over time. You know, so for me to really understand it, I would have to read it in the Greek, and it's gonna take a while for me to truly know enough Greek to be able to read the Bible, the New Testament in Greek. But point is, I'm not too concerned about hell or anything like that. I'm not saying that it does or doesn't exist. I'm just not concerned with it. Um, I think that what's more important is that when you interact with sentient beings, so be them people or animals or anything that's conscious, to see God in them. When you look at them, see Jesus. And the way you treat them is the way you would treat God if He manifested on earth, or if she manifested on earth, right? So that's the ultimate goal of my Christian mysticism, which is ethical um, treatment of conscious beings. Now, of course, there are limitations. If you're very poor, I don't expect you to give your last dollar to somebody else. But there are always ways to go get around this. If you want to feed the poor but are very poor yourself, you can join some sort of soup kitchen or something, and stuff like that. Um, and and you need to remember there's a lot of people on earth and there's a lot of people doing things like that, so it's not always the one way to do things. For me, I am not equipped to do those types of things. I don't have enough money to give away. When something happens and I have a lot of money, I'm totally fine with buying somebody a meal if they say they're hungry. But if I can't do it, I can't do it. I'm not going to force myself to do it. My thing is, I look at what I'm actually good at. And I am good at explaining things that I've studied profusely. And I know it might not seem like I'm that great in some of my videos, but this is simply because videotaping myself talking is new to me. So, some of my videos, there might be portions where I'm simply just disorganized. But I'll be learning how to. It's not about the explaining itself, it's about explaining on camera and making sure that I was able to convey what I'm trying to convey and that it's being captured correctly. Um, this is one of the reasons why I prefer to write, because when I write a paragraph, I can read it over 15 times and continue editing and editing and editing until I feel it's perfect. And that's why I prefer to write books, because if I write a 200-page book, by the time I publish it, this book is going to explain the thing that I want to explain in the best way possible, because I've spent many hours on it making sure that it was explained properly. So my contribution is intellectual and spiritual. I write books and artistic. Um, oh, look, like, well, I guess it's not really a contribution. It's more of a hobby. But I paint. I do paintings, And I don't really know if that's a contribution to the world, but I would feel sad to tell an artist that they're not contributing with their art, right? Like I could say it to myself, but I would feel bad to say it to another artist, because I'm sure that there's a lot of art that speaks to people and teaches them something. There's emotion in art. Like let me see. Let me just show you guys some stuff. Like I write books, I make music, and I do some art. Like some basic stuff. It's really hard to see because of the blue light that I got here. Um, and I don't sell anything, but I try to capture, some nice little stuff, and I'm still not the best, uh, it's just, as of right now, I consider it to just be a hobby. I just consider it to be a hobby, uh, you know, I like this one. This is the first painting that I've done on these types of canvases. And I noticed that my two mountains here look like apes. So I did a little quote there. Alright, so that's enough of my art. So I would like to be able to create music that that help people engage with certain emotions and spiritual concepts and existential topics, and does something for someone emotionally. And I would like to do paintings that engage people visually, and write books that engage with people intellectually. Um, and also, I am also a power lifter. So hopefully one day I'll be able to train people and be able to get their bodies and like their physiques and all of that. So I think that I should focus on what I'm good at, and hopefully one day I'll be able to contribute to society in a way where people can come to me, so that they can become stronger physically, build a physique, learn how to fight and be able to defend themselves and the people they love, be able to consume music that engages their emotions and intellect and spiritual side of them. Maybe even look at art that does for something for them spiritually or emotionally. And books that they can read and reread and learn something, So that's my contribution, and I think you all, if you like this type of spirituality, because I know a lot of people are really into the dark magic now, and the people that are super against the dark magic get lost in this love and light stuff where like it's not even like it doesn't even make sense too much. I've talked to these people and they say like we're waiting because there's going to be a shift into the fifth dimension, and I'm like, well, what does the fifth dimension look like? It's like, I don't know. It's like, so then how do you know when we're in the fifth dimension? What if we're already in the fifth dimension? And I mean, like, technically we're not, because this is three-dimensional. Like the idea of dimension is talking about spatial awareness. Like there's these three accesses of whatever, right? So what is four and five dimensional? Like I've seen what a fourth dimensional shape should look like, and you can only really make it on computers, but it doesn't make sense when you're talking about spirituality. Like I think they just take science sounding words and turn it into a spiritual concept so that it sounds more real because it's based on science when it's not. And it's like, all right, come on guys, chill out with that. And I'm not trying to shit on them. It's just like I've heard a lot of their stuff. Like I've heard people talk about love and light, and then they like get belligerently angry at the smallest thing. And it's like, what happened to the whole love and light thing? And it's like, yeah, but it was justified because the thing is like, yeah, I understand that, But when I get mad, and if I get like really, really mad, like I understand that that's my shadow. Like you're trying to portray it as if you're all love and light. Like it kind of seems a little hypocritical, you know? Like I don't know. And then there's people that don't do stuff like that, but then they get too into this weird, like, all right, put a freaking quartz crystal on your penis and it'll grow 3 inches type stuff. And it's like, I don't know, like, I don't want to crap on it because I know that it stems from things that I actually listen to. Like, all of this New Age spirituality stems from Wicca, and Wicca stems from the Golden Dawn, and Golden Dawn stems from Freemasonry, and Freemasonry stems from Kabbalah and Hermeticism and Hellenism and all of this type of stuff. And there's some stuff going on there, but I feel like every other generation they kind of go into a weirder and weirder avenue where it's getting further and further away from the original understanding of spirituality. Like spirituality isn't as spiritual as you think it is. Like spirituality is very physical sometimes, but people try to turn it into this thing. Like I do believe that crystals have some sort of magic in them, but the magic is inside yourself. The crystal is more of something that holds a sense of correspondence. Like this quartz crystal is known for this, this, and this, and within this tradition, it's attached to this entity and this thing and blah blah blah. So the quartz crystal itself doesn't actually have power, but those correspondents have power. Because when I use that quartz crystal in a specific meditation or in a specific ritual, my mind, my subconscious is saying that this crystal is going to cause this to happen because of these correspondence, and this entity is going to work through it and do these things and blah 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 blah. Right? So like in folk magic, when you have all of these herbs and stuff like that, the herb itself is not what has the magic. It's like the spirit of the herb. It's like it technically this herb is a living thing. So there's this spirit, and this spirit is engaging with these correspondents. Like this the these correspondents, like we like chamomile, we it has this correspondence with like calm, like with the calm, right? So I don't know how to explain it very well because I don't have like all of the correspondence just downloaded into my brain at all times. But yeah, point is, all of these things, like there's a lot of things that do have power, but it's more about the correspondence, and the way your subconscious links it to things. And then when you're using it and you believe that it's going to do the thing, it enacts this change within your subconscious, and changes that happen in your subconscious become manifested into real life. So I think I've explained everything that I could about the Abrahamic faiths and how I perceive the gods and all of that, and Jesus also. So Jesus Christ is very important to me. And also something that I have to mention, and I kind of funny that I saved it all the way to the end of the video, because people are like, "Oh, that's where I step away." Now, you see, you guys got to remember something. Okay, so a big thing, I have to mention this because a lot of people don't understand this. So Christianity, at a later point, turned Lucifer into an evil entity. They turned him into this, douchebag angel that got casted out of heaven for wanting to be God and this, that, and the other thing, right? Now, the actual literature does not say this. Lucifer is just the Latin word for light bearer, light bringer, morning star. These are all terms referring to Venus, the planet. And in the original Hebrew, the name is Hallel, and it just means bright one, shining one. Same thing, morning star. It's pretty much just Venus, the planet. So Lucifer was never actually an angel. This is just the name that they gave Venus. So Venus, or Lucifer, is not an angel or an entity or a deity. It's a current. the idea of Lucifer, somebody that's Luciferian or follows the current of Lucifer, is the current of true love. And the current of true love states that uh, it is justified for me to demand freedom, autonomy, and sovereignty. And the idea of true love is that I must attribute that, I must grant that to other people as well. So some people will say, I love you, but you're going to hell. And that's just not how love actually works. So if I truly love you, then I have to allow you to be free and have autonomy and have um, sovereignty. And if that means that you disbelieve me and what I do and you go in a different direction, so be it. So a real God that gives you freedom of choice, a real God that loves you, is going to allow you to disobey him. So that's the real idea of Lucifer. And people try to say that Lucifer is Satan, and that's not true. The angel to the left of God, so God on the right, God, his right hand is Jesus, and his left hand is Samael. And Samael is most likely the idea of the devil. Samael is the adversary. Satan is the adversary. So Samael is Satan most likely, and he is also referred to as the poison of God, and he is also um, um, the adversary. Blah blah blah. Um, yeah, but this idea is not that Samael is this evil guy that we have to defeat and we have to bury him in the blood of Christ. It's not like that. Samael actually works for God. There's different people that believe different things, but personally, I think that Samael is the adversary, and he will challenge you for the sake of growth, for the sake of making you better so that you can learn how to overcome hurdles and obstacles. But he does this through God. God is giving him permission. Samael cannot do anything that he doesn't get permission for. So God gives him permission. So technically Samael is working for God. He's not working against God. So this idea of an angel that wanted to be God and got casted out of heaven for it is not accurate. This idea of angels coming down to earth and blah 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 blah, I think this is something a little more tied to the idea of the Watchers, and this is a whole nother thing if we're getting into the book of Enoch and all of that. So there's this whole idea of angels becoming more human because they fell into sin. They wanted to have sex with the women, the human women, and they had Nephilim babies and blah 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 blah. So there's all this type of stuff, but it's neither here nor there. Um, if you want to believe that type of stuff is cool, there's a lot of information on it on the internet. But I don't think that this is the meat of what I do. And it's just not necessary for me to develop an entire idea around it. There are some stuff that's interesting there, but I can't tell you that this is 100% true, because at this point we're no longer talking about angels as spiritual beings. We're talking about angels as physical beings that can literally fly down from the sky and uh, boink your girlfriend, right? So yeah, so that's something completely different. Okay. All right, it's already been an hour, so I want to get out of here already. I want to stop this before it gets too long and you guys don't want to watch it. I hope you guys enjoyed what I was talking about, and I hope this did something for y'all. If you want to know more about my particular tradition, just leave comments and ask questions, and I'll definitely make some more videos. Um, if if over time I get a lot of very good questions, and I feel that there's a way that I can turn this all into a book, I will, and then I'll promote that book so that way you can understand my understanding of the Abrahamic faith. Final thing that I wanted to say from what I was saying before. I do not perceive Lucifer as a bad thing. I do not perceive Samael as a inherently bad figure. Technically, he is bad because he's your adversary, he's your opponent, but it's not that he's evil, it's that this is his duty. This is his particular task in the grand scheme of the manifested God. The manifested God is trying to challenge you in certain ways and save you in other ways in order to develop you into something that you need to be for this upcoming, whatever you want to call it, like something that's coming in the future. So yeah, all right, guys. I think that's pretty much everything. So leave a comment, leave some likes, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff. All right. Yeah. So stay free.